A 70-year-old man wakes up every morning at 5 a.m., not because he has somewhere to be, not because someone is waiting for him. He's long past the age of alarms, deadlines, or urgent responsibilities. He rises from bed quietly, makes himself a warm drink, and walks slowly to his favorite chair by the window. He sits there in silence and watches the sun rise, every day without fail for exactly 15 minutes. No phone, no television, just him and the sky. His neighbors whisper that he's eccentric. His family tells him he should be traveling, resting, enjoying retirement properly. But they don't understand. What this man has uncovered is something most people spend their entire lives chasing without ever really finding: a deeper truth about time itself. We think of time as a schedule, a number, a resource. But for this man, time has become something else entirely. He's come to realize, through years of quiet observation, that the way we relate to time is one of the greatest illusions of modern life. And behind that illusion is a hidden wisdom, one that Carl Jung once touched on with great clarity: that time, as we commonly understand it, is not real in the way we assume. There is a paradox in how humans experience time. In childhood and early adulthood, we're in a rush. We want to grow up, skip ahead, reach the next milestone. We dream of finishing school, getting a job, finding love, reaching the weekend. But then something strange happens, often without us even noticing. At some point, we start pleading for time to slow down. We begin to miss the moments we once wished away. That shift is not about nostalgia or getting old. It's something much deeper. It's the soul waking up. Carl Jung would say that this change is not random. It's part of a larger, inner process, the awakening of consciousness. When we are young, we're ruled by the ego and its endless chase for more. But eventually, if we're lucky, we start to sense that we've been running in circles, that the life we were told to want might not be the life we truly need. And that's where time begins to feel different. Our culture tells us to master time, to be more productive, more efficient, more organized. We read books on time management, download apps to optimize every minute, and plan our days down to the second. We talk about time like it's currency, saving it, wasting it, investing it. But Jung saw through all of this. He understood that the real crisis isn't that we have too little time. It's that we've lost connection to what time really is. Because time is not a clock. It's not the ticking of a watch or the movement of the sun across the sky. Time is your awareness, your presence, your ability to be here now fully. And when you start paying attention to this, really paying attention, you'll notice something fascinating. Time stretches. It contracts. It flows differently depending on your state of mind. 1 hour can vanish like smoke when you're with someone you love. The same hour can feel endless when you're stuck in a place you don't want to be. A weekend can feel like a lifetime if you're deeply present, and a year can disappear in a blur if you're just going through the motions. This elasticity of time isn't a trick of the brain. It's a clue. It tells us that real time, lived time, doesn't follow the rules we think it does. It follows the rhythm of the soul. Imagine this: 2 people, both 40 years old. One has lived each day awake, fully engaged, choosing where to place their energy. The other has coasted through decades, doing what was expected, putting off their dreams, waiting for someday. Chronologically, they are the same age, but in lived experience, they are worlds apart. Jung believed that not all years are equal. 1 year of conscious living is worth more than 10 years of sleepwalking through life. The difference isn't in how long you've been alive. It's in how deeply you've participated in your own existence. It's in how present you've been, how many moments you've actually tasted, felt, and inhabited. And that's why the man at the window wakes up at 5 a.m. Not because he has to, but because he wants to witness life in its rawest, most unfiltered form. Because in those 15 minutes, watching the sky shift from darkness to light, he experiences something pure, something sacred. He's not watching time pass. He's meeting it face to face. When we begin to approach time this way, everything changes. The stress to be constantly productive fades. The obsession with the future softens. We no longer rush through the present to get somewhere else. We begin to understand that life isn't happening later. It's happening now. And every moment we're not present for is a moment lost forever. So pause. Breathe. Consider your own relationship with time. How much of your day is truly lived, not just passed through? How often are you present with the people you love, with your own thoughts, with the sky outside your window? The man watching the sunrise has found a rhythm that modern life has buried. And maybe, if we're willing to listen, not with our ears, but with our hearts, we can find it too. Not by doing more, but by being more aware, more open, more alive. Because in the end, time is not something outside of us. It's something we become. When do you feel time slows down for you? When does it seem to speed up? What patterns arise when you observe these moments honestly? The answers to these questions reveal something profound. Your true values, not the ones you claim to have, but the ones you are actually living. Time expands when we align with what truly matters to us, and it contracts when we become disconnected from our authentic purpose. Modern society has developed a deeply distorted relationship with time, one that Carl Jung would undoubtedly find absurd. We live under the illusion that we can multiply time by doing more things at once, that we can save it by becoming more efficient, or that we can recover it by working longer hours or moving faster. But this way of thinking comes from a mistaken view of what it means to be alive. We treat time as if it were an engineering problem, something to be controlled or optimized, rather than recognizing it as the very medium through which we experience existence. It's like trying to optimize love or manage beauty. These are things that resist being confined to formulas. And because of that confusion, many people reach the end of their lives having been hyper-efficient, yet deeply unfulfilled. They gained time, but lost meaning. They perfected the means, but forgot the ends. Look closely at the rhythm around you, at the conversations you overhear every day. How many revolve around being busy? How many people use the word busy as if it meant important or valuable? This modern equation, busy equals worthy, is one of the most expensive confusions of our time. And the hardest truth to accept is that many of us fill our time not because what we do has real value, but because we don't know how to face silence, the void, the dizziness we feel when we meet ourselves in the present moment. Carl Jung spoke clearly about this. Nothing truly belongs to us except time. Yet that is precisely what we hand over to others with terrifying speed. We give it away to bosses who disrespect our boundaries, to empty social obligations, to distractions that numb us, to anxieties about things we can't control. And that speaks volumes about our human condition. We prefer the stress of being overloaded to the responsibility of consciously choosing how we want to live. We'd rather complain about not having time than face the real question, what do I want time for? Truly. because that's where everything begins. That's where our understanding of time becomes real. Time is not something we have. It's something we are. It's not a possession. It's our very mode of being. We are time incarnate, consciousness unfolding moment by moment, breathing life into each instant. And when we truly grasp this, it transforms the way we inhabit the world. Each moment becomes a chance to be who we consciously choose to be. There is no distance between me and time. There is only pure presence manifesting now. Carl Jung understood this deeply. That's why he believed every day holds the potential of a complete life, not as a poetic metaphor, but as lived reality. Each day contains birth, growth, fullness, and death. Every day can be a whole existence if we live it with total awareness. People who understand this don't postpone their happiness, their love, or their dreams. They aren't waiting for more time to finally do what matters. They realize the moment to act is this one, right now. This conversation, this decision, this breath. This is where life is happening fully. Take a moment to reflect. How many times have you postponed meaningful experiences, waiting for the right time? How often have you said, when I finish this, when I have more time, when the kids grow up, when I retire? All those whens are part of a common illusion. The belief that a perfect future will arrive, where we'll finally have permission to truly live. But the truth, however painful, is that this perfect future never comes. There will always be new excuses to keep waiting. And meanwhile, life, the only one we get, is slipping through our fingers in the very present we're ignoring. Pause and look at how you relate to all this. What parts of a meaningful life are you putting off? What important conversations are you avoiding? What experiences are you saving for someday? Truly understanding time doesn't erase our delays because we become impulsive, but because we realize something far deeper. The present is the only place where life truly unfolds. According to Carl Jung, transforming our relationship with time doesn't require complex methods or sophisticated techniques. What it demands is a radical shift in awareness, a move from measuring life by quantity to living it by quality. We must replace the obsession with efficiency with an authentic search for presence. Shift constant activity into a clear sense of purpose. And the first step is to develop what Jung might call temporal awareness, the capacity to honestly and clearly observe how we're investing our life, moment by moment. It's not about judging everything we do. It's about learning to pay deeper attention to where our energy goes and why. There's a simple yet powerful practice that can change everything. Before committing to any activity, pause and ask yourself one concrete question. Does this deserve a piece of my life? Not, do I have time for this? The real question is this worth a fragment of my existence? The difference between those two questions is vast. The first treats time as something external, like money to be managed. The second recognizes that time is your very life, and every commitment is an existential decision about how your story unfolds. From this perspective, many of the things we do out of habit or social pressure lose their meaning. Seriously, does that meeting really need your conscious presence? Does that show you watch on autopilot each night enrich your sense of being alive? Does that same old conversation add anything to your existence? And remember, this isn't about becoming a monk who renounces all pleasures and human connections. It's about choosing from clarity, from a place where you know what truly matters to you, and you consciously decide how to invest the most precious currency you possess, your presence. The second essential aspect is learning to fully inhabit the present moment. It doesn't matter which activity you choose. If you decide to wash the dishes, do it with full attention. If you choose to spend time with a friend, let your mind be nowhere else. If you're working on a project, let your engagement be total. Because when we are fully present, even the most mundane tasks are transformed, not by what we do, but by the quality of awareness we bring to the moment. And when someone truly understands this, their life begins to change, quietly but radically. What's interesting is that they may not change what they do. They may keep the same job, the same relationships, the same responsibilities, but something deep transforms in the way they live it. First, that chronic feeling of not having enough time disappears, not because they magically gain more hours in a day, but because every hour is lived so intensely that it becomes enough. The anxiety about time simply dissolves when we realize we always have exactly the time we need to fully live this moment. Second, our decisions become far clearer. When every choice is filtered through the question, does this deserve part of my life? Our priorities naturally rearrange. The superficial falls away effortlessly. What truly matters becomes as clear as crystal. Third, our relationships deepen in incredible ways. Because when we're genuinely present with others, not mentally stuck in the past or anticipating the future, a type of connection emerges that transforms. Others feel it. They sense our attention and respond with more authenticity, more openness. And finally, a peace arises that depends on nothing external. A peace that comes from knowing we're living authentically, that we're not postponing what's important, that every day we live contains a real possibility of wholeness. This transformation doesn't eliminate life's challenges, but it deeply changes the way we relate to them. Problems still show up, responsibilities still remain, difficulties still arise, but we no longer react from the anxiety of time. We respond from presence, from a place of focused calm. Now imagine what it would be like to live each day with that kind of temporal awareness. To wake up each morning, not with the panic of all you have to do, but with the question, how do I want to invest my life today? If every conversation became a chance for real connection, not just something to get through before moving on to the next thing. Reflect. When was the last time you lived like that? When did time feel abundant? Not because you had more hours, but because you were fully engaged with what you were living. Those moments weren't accidents. They were glimpses of what life can be when you understand the real value of time. Throughout this entire journey, we haven't talked about time management. What we've explored is something far deeper, an existential revolution, an awakening, a clear realization that you don't have time. You are time. Consciousness unfolding second by second in the experience of being alive. And Carl Jung, with his timeless insight, left us with a truth we should never forget. Life is not measured in years, but in moments of authentic presence. It's not the amount of time that defines a fulfilled life. It's the quality of awareness with which we inhabit each instant. Understanding this changes everything, because each moment we live becomes a complete opportunity to be who we truly choose to be. And this shift doesn't demand a total transformation of our external circumstances. What it does require is a profound change in the way we are present in the world, a move from distraction to focus, from postponing life to actually living it, from anxiety to the peace of knowing we are already living authentically. There comes a moment, brief, fleeting, and yet profoundly transformative, when the veil of illusion is lifted. That illusion is the belief in someday. Someday when things are perfect. Someday when I feel ready. Someday when life aligns just right. But here's the radical truth. Someday doesn't exist. It's a myth we cling to, a ghost we chase through the corridors of time. And in that endless chase, we overlook the only thing that has ever truly belonged to us. This moment, right now, this sudden awakening, no matter how small, breaks the invisible chains of that illusion. It tears apart the fantasy of a perfect future and brings us face to face with the real gift we've been given, the present. Yes, this very moment, imperfect and raw, filled with limitations and uncertainties, is the only fertile ground where life genuinely unfolds. And that, perhaps, is the most liberating truth a soul can encounter. Carl Jung often spoke of the psyche's deep yearning to return to the self, to wholeness, to integration. And the path back to the self does not lie in some distant future. It begins here, now, in how we breathe, in how we listen, in how we choose to show up fully for each breath, each word, each step. When we begin to grasp time in its true form, not as a linear path to something better, but as a sacred container for being, we stop measuring life by how much time we have and begin to value how deeply we inhabit the time we've been given. Meaning does not reside in the future. It doesn't wait for us in a perfect job, in a distant goal, or in a new version of ourselves. It is woven into the fabric of this exact second. It's in the smile you almost missed, the silence you rushed through, the stillness you ignored. Joy doesn't require more time. Love doesn't ask us to wait. And purpose doesn't come with a deadline. Everything you are seeking is already here, within the structure of now. This realization doesn't mean we stop growing or striving. It doesn't mark the end of our inner work. Quite the opposite. It's the beginning of a deeper journey, a journey into presence, into awareness, into the sacred art of truly dwelling in the moment, not as a stepping stone, but as the destination itself. When we start living as if each day were a complete lifetime, something profound shifts. We stop surviving and start experiencing. We stop hoping for a future that feels real and start realizing that reality is already here, waiting to be embraced. Because when our story nears its end, when the chapters begin to close and the final lines are written, what will remain? Not how much time we had, but how fully we lived within it. Not how long we were here, but how deeply we allowed ourselves to feel, to connect, to be. In the space between simply having time and inhabiting time lies the wisdom of a life truly lived. Ask yourself, when was the last time you felt completely present? When did the world seem to slow down because you were fully there, not thinking about tomorrow, not regretting yesterday, just here, completely immersed in the now? That moment, however brief, was sacred, and it holds a key to something eternal. If you've had one of those experiences of expanded time, of pure presence, I invite you to share it. Someone else may read your story and recognize their own. Your words might become the mirror someone needs to see their life more clearly. Never underestimate the healing power of shared presence. And if this message stirred something within you, something subtle, something quiet, but undeniably alive, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who might need to remember the truth they've always known deep down, that this moment is enough, that they are enough, that life, in all its imperfections, is still sacred ground. Wherever I am when you hear this, know that I will be grateful, with all my heart and soul, and know that what we offer in presence always returns to us in some mysterious, luminous form. Life has a way of echoing back what we give to it, especially when we give from a place of truth. The next video dives deeper into the revelations of Carl Jung, into the symbols, the dreams, and the hidden wisdom that lives inside each of us. Subscribe, turn on the bell. Don't miss what's coming next. These are not just teachings, they are invitations to awaken, to return, to remember who you are beneath the noise. Before you go, I want to ask, what did you feel while hearing these words? Where have you been searching for peace lately? Your answer matters. It really does. You matter, and your presence in this journey makes all the difference. We're not alone in this. We're walking this inner path together, one moment at a time. And believe me, this is just the beginning. See you soon. There comes a moment along the path when the soul begins to move from a completely different place. It's no longer the mind seeking meaning, nor the body longing for stability. It's something far deeper, a kind of inner fire that ignites without your consent, without your planning or reasoning. It arises spontaneously, without warning, as if something ancient within you has stirred awake after a long, silent slumber. It's not euphoria. It's not motivation. It's a vibration, primal and intense, that shakes you from the inside and changes your entire way of being in the world. This fire does not burn to destroy. It reveals. It doesn't push you forward. It awakens you. And when it begins to activate, everything that is not truly you starts to fall away. You can no longer lie to yourself. You can no longer hide behind roles or routines. Your soul begins to remember why it came here in the first place. And this memory, though it doesn't come with words, feels like a silent urgency that shifts everything. One of the first signs is an inner impulse that you can't quite explain, but you also can't ignore. It doesn't come from logic, nor is it triggered by external goals. It's a call that vibrates straight from your chest, a fire that doesn't ask for permission, that doesn't wait for the perfect moment. It appears suddenly, like something inside you has been waiting for far too long to be lit, and now refuses to remain dormant. This impulse might not always have a clear shape, but it has direction. It moves you toward what is real, toward what feels alive. It pulls you away from whatever dims your light, no matter how familiar or secure. And even if the world doesn't understand why you're changing, you do. You're not searching for something new. You're responding to something ancient that has always been there, waiting. That impulse doesn't come with a map, but it's unmistakable. It may not tell you exactly what to do, but it makes it absolutely clear what you can no longer continue doing. You begin to wake up with a soft but persistent discomfort, a kind of restlessness that no longer disappears with distractions or noise, because it's not about filling voids anymore. It's about acknowledging that something within you is ready to burn, to illuminate, to transform everything from the root. You start to feel that pretending is no longer an option, that remaining in comfort feels like betrayal. You hear a voice deep inside you that can no longer be silenced by logic, that refuses to surrender to excuses, that cannot be numbed by distractions. This voice doesn't scream, it burns. And even if a part of you wishes you could extinguish it to keep fitting in, you know that it's already too late for that. You've crossed an internal threshold. The first spark has been lit. You also begin to notice that what used to satisfy you now frustrates you. not because you've become ungrateful, but because you now see what you couldn't see before, that you were dimming your own light to sustain structures that no longer sustain you. This inner fire doesn't destroy what's outside. It simply makes what isn't aligned unbearable. It pushes you, not as punishment, but out of integrity. And though it might hurt, it also liberates. With every step you take in the direction of truth, the fire grows stronger, not as a punishment, but as guidance. You can no longer fully fall asleep. You can no longer lull your soul with hollow routines, because something within you has been activated, something that doesn't ask for explanation, only space, something that refuses to bargain with fear, only with truth. This fire doesn't arrive to give you certainty. It comes to return you to yourself, to who you were before the masks, before the disguises, before the quiet agreements with the parts of life that were extinguishing your light. It doesn't ask you to know the whole destination, only not to deny yourself the beginning, because once the fire starts to awaken, there's no turning back. The only way forward is to burn with purpose. You also begin to realize that this impulse doesn't need external validation. You're no longer waiting for approval or hoping someone else will understand what you're feeling, because you know from the deepest place within that this fire doesn't belong to anyone else. It's yours. It was born with you. It has always been there. Only now it's becoming visible, not as a passing emotion, but as a force that permeates everything, your way of speaking, choosing, living. And that's what truly changes everything. You're not chasing a goal, you're returning to yourself. Every time you listen to that inner impulse and act from that space, the fire becomes more distinct, more present. You start choosing differently, not out of obligation, not from guilt, not from the fear of loss. You choose from a place of expansion, from that sacred space where something inside you ignites and nothing else makes sense unless it vibrates in resonance with that flame. Even when you feel lost, the fire doesn't leave. It remains, like an ember that refuses to be extinguished, not by doubt, not by fatigue. It stays there, quietly reminding you that something greater awaits, that no matter how many times you disconnect, you can always return. Because this fire isn't snuffed out by time. It only fades when you stop listening. And now, more than ever, you are beginning to listen. And so, almost without realizing it, the fire begins to guide your days, not with grand signs, but with small certainties, the kind you feel in your chest, the kind that don't ask for permission or explanation, the kind that burn but do not destroy, because they're not here to break you, they're here to reveal you. Slowly, you're remembering what your soul has always known, that you came here to light something up, something the world cannot extinguish. The second sign comes when you begin to release what once felt essential, and you do so without pain. People, places, habits, even long-held dreams that no longer resonate with who you are now. These things begin to fall away. There's no bitterness, no dramatic farewell. Instead, a quiet clarity settles within you, as though a wiser part of yourself, existing on a higher plane, is making decisions on your behalf. You might not fully understand the reasons behind this detachment, but you feel deep down that it isn't about loss, it's about cleansing. Your inner fire doesn't just illuminate, it also burns away the things that no longer serve a purpose. And what's most surprising is that in the act of letting go, you don't feel emptiness, you feel light. It's as though everything you release frees up internal space that had been occupied merely out of habit or inertia. It no longer hurts as much to step away from what was once part of your life for years, because now you understand something fundamental. Not everything that has played a role in your story is meant to accompany you in fulfilling your purpose. Certain relationships, beliefs, even parts of your identity, some of them are meant to stay behind as you step forward into a truer version of yourself. You're not running away, you're refining, tuning in more precisely to your essence. You no longer carry the weight of the past out of loyalty. You don't continue to hold on to what dims your light just because a part of you still feels guilty. Your inner fire isn't asking you to destroy anything. It simply makes it impossible to keep ignoring what no longer vibrates with you. And this clarity you feel isn't intellectual, it's energetic. Suddenly, what you used to tolerate with effort becomes suffocating, and instead of forcing yourself to stay, you choose to leave. This fire awakens an intolerance for self-deception. You can no longer justify relationships, paths, or behaviors that don't align with your truth, not out of judgment, but out of integrity. There's no more room to keep convincing yourself you're okay in spaces where you're clearly not. The fire now shines so brightly that it reveals everything you once managed to hide from yourself. And once you see it, you can't go back. What you're letting go of doesn't get erased. You honor it, but you no longer need it. There's no paralyzing nostalgia, only calm gratitude. You recognize that everything that leaves makes room for something more aligned with your present truth. Even if you don't yet have a clear vision of where you're going, your soul already knows. This new space opening up isn't a void, it's a preparation. Each act of letting go, when done from a place of authenticity, strengthens the fire within you. Every time you choose loyalty to your inner voice, that fire grows, because this inner fire isn't sustained by fear or attachment. It's fueled by your choice to prioritize truth over comfort. And slowly, that's exactly what you're doing. You're releasing who you no longer are to make space for who you're about to become. You also begin to notice that every time you release something from the soul, something inside you rearranges. You might not be able to explain it with your mind, but your body feels it. A tension eases, a burden lifts, a new space expands. It's not that letting go has become easy. It's that you can no longer keep holding on without dimming your own light. The fire that's awakening inside you doesn't negotiate with what doesn't resonate. It doesn't tolerate half-truths. It doesn't feed on what once was. It only responds to what's real in the present moment. Even when the goodbye is silent, you know it's final. Not because you've become cold, but because you've become certain. A part of you has already stepped into a new stage. Staying behind would be like trying to breathe in a place where there's no more oxygen. You no longer define yourself by what you leave behind. You define yourself by the profound act of choosing yourself, by the silent decision not to betray yourself, by the invisible gesture of honoring your evolution, even when it hurts. This inner fire is showing you that true loss isn't about losing others, it's about losing yourself. And that's no longer a risk you're willing to take. That's why your choices are different now. Not because you're tougher, but because you're more aware. You no longer fear walking alone if that companionship asks you to shrink. You no longer move from obligation, only from vibration. And if someone or something doesn't respect that new internal level, you let it go, not with resentment, but with reverence. And in that new space, which once felt like loneliness, you now feel presence. Because once you stop filling your life with things that don't vibrate with you, You start to truly feel your own essence. You begin to realize that you don't need to fill every corner. You just need to let your fire inhabit them. And that flame, even if small, is so pure and so true that you could never again settle for being lit by anything less than your own essence. You've stopped fearing the emptiness. Now, you see it as the prelude to purpose, as the sacred space where your soul begins to build what's real. And you, who are letting go without resentment, are showing that your fire is already burning, not out of reaction, but from awareness, because you know that anyone who lets go from a place of truth is making space for something far greater. You also recognize that this kind of release is unlike anything you've experienced before. You're not closing cycles with anger or running to protect yourself. You're letting go from the deep understanding that your energy no longer fits there, and it doesn't have to. You no longer try to force something that was once beautiful to keep existing, because you've come to understand that true love, genuine connection, and real purpose never ask you to betray yourself in order to stay. You've stopped romanticizing sacrifice. You've learned that your soul did not come here to hold up what's falling apart at the expense of your light. What does it mean to keep holding on to what no longer resonates with you? It's not loyalty, it's abandonment of self. And you've decided to return to yourself, even if it means reconfiguring everything, even if it leaves you for a while in the silence of what hasn't arrived yet. Because that silence no longer scares you. You now see it as fertile ground. Every renunciation, even the painful ones, becomes a declaration. You're declaring that you deserve peace, that your energy is sacred, that your soul is now prioritizing purpose over attachment. And the universe listens to those invisible declarations. It responds when it sees you let go without fear of losing. Because you finally remembered something essential. What's true never leaves. What's true either stays or returns in greater alignment. And in that quiet act of release, you're not just setting others free, you're setting yourself free. You're making space for yourself, for the new that's trying to emerge from the depths of your being, for that voice that no longer has to compete with external noise, for that fire that now burns clearer, cleaner, steadier. You're learning to live without the weight of the unnecessary. You're walking lighter, more authentically, more yourself. And that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. It means that finally, pain no longer makes your decisions. The fire does. The truth does. That part of you that doesn't need to speak has already chosen to keep going, burning bright. The third sign is when you begin to act without asking for permission. You no longer need others' validation to move forward. You don't wait for approval from your environment or for someone to tell you it's the right time. You simply do it, not from impulsiveness, but from an inner force that has become impossible to ignore, a silent certainty pushing you forward even when the full path is still unclear. That fire isn't asking for explanations, it's asking to be embodied. This action doesn't come from ego, it comes from the soul. You're not acting to prove anything. You're acting because you can no longer sit still while something inside you begs to be expressed, created, transformed. It's as if a part of you grew tired of waiting for the perfect conditions, as if you finally realized the perfect moment doesn't appear on its own. It's built from presence, from choice, from the kind of fire that won't go out, even when everything around you suggests it's not the time. You're no longer stopped by not yets. You're no longer held back by the doubts of those who don't feel what you feel. You've started honoring your inner impulse as a compass. You've understood that this movement born from within isn't chasing instant results. It's searching for alignment, action that matches your vibration, your transformation, all that you've been holding in out of fear of not being understood. And even though you don't know exactly where each step will lead, you know you can't keep waiting, because now you understand that postponing what's true is a form of self-abandonment. There are ideas, words, creations, and decisions that, if they're not born now, will wither inside you. And you, who've been building this fire for so long, are no longer willing to let it die just to keep others comfortable. You start with small but authentic steps. You begin to make decisions that once seemed too big, to take risks that don't come from chaos, but from an inner steadiness that whispers, "This now aligns with who I am." And even if the world doesn't respond right away, you no longer wait for it to, because now you know that acting from your fire is already a response, already an agreement with yourself. This new strength isn't aggressive, it's calm, but unshakable. It doesn't impose, but it doesn't bargain either. It's that voice telling you that if you don't move now, the fire will start turning into ash. And you've decided you're not letting that happen again. Because now you know that acting from your center isn't a luxury, it's a soul necessity. You also realize that this kind of action doesn't require applause. You're not looking for recognition. You don't need anyone to see it or get it. You do it because not doing it would be a quiet betrayal of your soul. Because something in you has changed at the core. You're not moving to become someone. You're moving because you are someone now, and that someone can't stay quiet in spaces where their fire has no room. Every action you take from that inner center reinforces your presence. You don't need big wins or instant results. The fire within isn't rushed, it's committed. And you too are done waiting to feel ready. You've realized no one ever feels ready for what truly matters, that the fire doesn't ask for certainty, it asks for devotion. And if you keep waiting for everything to make sense before moving, you'll slowly burn out without even noticing. But once you surrender to it, something new begins to emerge. Not the full path, but the next step. A small step, so clear you can't ignore it. And when you take it, without needing approval, the fire grows stronger. Because that's what feeds it. Coherence, not outside conditions, not others' judgments, not results, just the decision to stop postponing yourself. Even if no one else notices, you know what's awakening within. Because every time you act from that fire, everything shifts. Your energy becomes ordered. Your mind quiets. Your emotions align. There's no more inner conflict, because now there's direction. And you don't need to explain it. You feel the deep relief of having chosen yourself. You've started building yourself through movement, discovering who you are, not from waiting, but from action, rooted in your truth. You no longer need someone else to tell you the time is now, because deep down, you already know it is. You also recognize that every time you act from that inner flame, your entire energy field responds. You don't need to understand it to know it. You feel it in your chest expanding, in your breath growing lighter, in the absence of that tension you used to think was normal when doing what was expected instead of what was real. It's not that things become easier. It's that now, the hard things no longer paralyze you. Because moving with fire means moving with roots, and that makes you unstoppable. You no longer do things out of habit. You don't work just to emotionally survive. You don't speak just to fill silence. Now, every gesture carries intention. Every step holds presence. Because when fire moves you, everything you do leaves a deeper mark, even if no one sees it. It doesn't matter if others recognize it, you know it. And that inner knowing is more powerful than any external gaze. You also realize there's no going back. You can't return to acting from disconnection without your soul feeling it like a wound, because now you understand the difference between acting from impulse and acting from alignment. And that difference is everything. You've learned that when you move from fire, you don't drain, you expand. You don't lose yourself. You sharpen. You don't hesitate. You move forward, even in uncertainty. And something even deeper begins to happen. The fire starts to give you identity. You no longer define yourself by your past, by your roles, or by the story others tell about you. You define yourself by your capacity to move from essence, from that invisible force that no longer fades or gets outsourced, from the coherence between who you are and what you do. That's what purpose is, the exact place where what you feel inside takes shape in the world. And it doesn't matter if no one tells you you're on the right path. You know it, not because of results, but because of resonance. Because when your inner fire becomes direction, no doubt can compete with the certainty of a soul set ablaze. The fourth sign appears when your resistance to change begins to dissolve. You no longer fight what is shifting. You stop clinging to the familiar out of fear. Instead of fearing movement, you begin to welcome it openly. Not because everything is suddenly clear, but because something within you has understood that the new doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to reveal you. Your inner fire has prepared you to walk through transitions without losing yourself. And that's why what once felt like chaos now begins to feel like possibility. You also discover that change no longer sweeps you away like it used to. You don't feel like a victim of movement, but a conscious part of it. You've stopped searching for stability in external things and are now finding it in your own ability to adapt without dimming your light. You no longer cling to what once worked because you know that what served you yesterday could become a cage today. Your fire has taught you how to let go without losing your essence, how to move without falling apart, how to change without betraying yourself. Each transition is no longer a threat, but an activation. You feel something in you grow stronger every time you let go without fear. When you take a new path without having every step figured out, and you don't do it unconsciously, you do it with radical trust in what you're feeling inside. Your fire doesn't need certainty, it needs room to burn. And when change comes, you don't block it, you recognize it as part of the design. You start to notice that the unknown no longer feels so heavy. You used to avoid it, fear it, delay it. And now, even though the vertigo remains, there's also momentum, because your inner fire pushes you not toward safety, but toward truth. And you, who already know what it feels like to betray yourself, choose more firmly what truly represents you. Even if it comes with no guarantees, change no longer feels like loss. It feels like expansion. Even in the midst of disorder, you feel something aligning inside. Even if the world shakes, you're steadier. Not because nothing affects you, but because everything that moves you now makes you stronger. You no longer see movement as a threat, but as part of your awakening, a necessary reconfiguration in someone who has ignited their inner fire and is willing to let that fire transform whatever it touches. You don't need to control every step anymore. You trust more in what you feel than in what you planned. You're no longer anxious about not knowing how things will end because you've realized your inner fire isn't interested in endings. It's interested in transformations, and you're finally willing to walk through them. You've also come to recognize that every change in your life, even the most uncomfortable one, arrives with a message you're no longer willing to ignore. You've become so sensitive to misalignment that now you can feel when a chapter has ended, even if you can't yet name it. Before, you waited for external signs to let go. Now your inner fire is enough guidance. It speaks to you without words, telling you something has completed its cycle, and with increasing humility, you make room for the new. You've stopped negotiating with stagnation. You know staying in a place where you no longer resonate isn't stability, it's self-abandonment. And though the leap into the unknown still causes vertigo, you now trust your ability to fly. Because every time you've dared to release what no longer belonged to you, life has shown you something greater, cleaner, more aligned, and that memory sustains you. You've also stopped seeing repetitive cycles as punishment. Now you see them as teachers. You understand that if something returns, it's not so you can hold it the same way, but so you can choose differently. Your inner fire has awakened a consciousness that no longer allows you to repeat what you once normalized, and that gives you power. The power not to react, but to respond. The power not to resist, but to move with the flow without getting lost in it. You've understood that change is not a disruption of your purpose. It's part of its activation. You're not here to do just one thing. You're here to evolve, to transform, to let old versions of yourself die off when they no longer represent you. And your fire knows that. That's why it burns when you stay too long in a place where you no longer grow. That's why it pushes you, even when you're still afraid, not to make you suffer, but to remind you of who you are. And in that silent memory of your soul, you begin to understand. There is no going backward when fire is leading the way. Even what looks like a detour is actually redirecting you. Even what seems like a loss is actually lightening your load. Because now, everything that moves, whether you understand it or not, vibrates in perfect rhythm with the purpose your soul has already set in motion. Sign number 5. Your truth no longer fits in small spaces. You've begun to speak, to express yourself, to reveal parts of you that you once hid in order not to disturb, not to disrupt the peace. But now, you can't hold it back. Not because you're trying to impose anything, but because the silence was consuming you. Your inner fire has started to push your voice outward. And that voice doesn't want to shout. It wants to resonate. You're not seeking attention. You're seeking alignment. And that's why what you used to hide is now shared with a calm strength that changes everything. You also realize that the way you express yourself has evolved. You no longer speak to convince. You speak to liberate. You no longer choose your words out of fear of being too much. You choose them out of respect for yourself. Your voice has stopped being a tool of adaptation and has become a channel for truth. And that truth may not always be comfortable, but it's yours, and that is enough. You begin to see how long you've been holding yourself back, how often you sacrificed your own peace just to maintain someone else's, how much you silenced what needed to be said just to avoid conflict. But now, the fire burning at your center won't let you stay silent where you need to speak your truth, because what isn't expressed gets blocked, and you've decided to unblock yourself. You no longer care about being too intense, too sensitive, too direct, because you've stopped measuring your voice to fit into spaces not meant for your truth. You've realized your energy was never meant to go unnoticed. It was meant to transform. And every time you speak from that fire, you don't impose, you illuminate. You don't attack, you reflect. You don't push, you awaken. Even when the right words don't come, your presence speaks. Your gaze, your silence, your frequency. Everything you once repressed now flows with a different rhythm, because your voice is no longer just sound. It's the extension of your soul. And that soul has remembered its purpose, to hold truth, even when it shakes, even when it isn't embraced. And most importantly, you've stopped asking for permission to be yourself, not from the ego, but from authenticity. You no longer wait for a safe space to show yourself. You are that space. You are that sanctuary. Because when you speak from what burns inside, you're not seeking applause. You're affirming that you can no longer dim your fire just to fit into someone else's comfort. You also notice that by allowing yourself to speak from that deep place, something within you comes into order, not because others understand or accept it, but because you finally stop fragmenting yourself. Each time you express what you used to hold back, you don't just free yourself, you integrate. And that integration feels like rest, like expansion, like finally being able to breathe without asking for permission. You've let go of needing ideal circumstances to be yourself, because you now understand that every moment you choose to be a vessel of truth is a sacred act, even if it goes unnoticed. You're no longer speaking from a need to be heard. You're speaking because what you carry inside can no longer stay in shadow. You know that every time you repress your light, something dims within you, and you're no longer willing to allow that. You also realize your voice doesn't need to be perfect. You don't have to know everything, say it flawlessly, or have a polished narrative. You just need to be honest, consistent, present. Fire doesn't demand form. It demands surrender. And you've begun to surrender, with less shame, with less guilt, and with more loyalty to what you truly feel. And it shows, not in volume, but in vibration. Your energy starts to speak for you. Your very presence becomes a message. You no longer strive to explain what others can't resonate with. You simply live it. You no longer argue your truth. You embody it. Because you understand that the real impact doesn't come from what's shouted, but from what's held with soul. By speaking from your fire, you also learn to hold the echo, to accept that there won't always be a response, that not everyone will know what to do with your truth. But instead of shrinking, you remain. Because now you know your purpose is not to please, it is to awaken. And awakening may be uncomfortable, but it always transforms. You are no longer a reflection of what others expect. You are the manifestation of a voice that has been ignited from within. And that voice, even if it trembles, even if it hesitates, even if it's still learning how to speak itself, can no longer be silenced, because your fire holds it now, and that fire will not go out. The sixth sign appears quietly, almost invisibly. You don't force anything. You don't make big moves. And yet, everything starts to shift. People begin to walk away without drama, without a fight. Others enter your life for reasons you can't quite explain. Places that once gave you comfort now feel strange and distant. Outwardly, you're doing nothing different, but inside, your energy is no longer the same. Something has ignited, a fire, and that fire is starting to reconfigure your world. You may not notice it at first, or you might even feel confused, but soon, a deeper understanding arrives. This is not chaos. This is alignment. The path is being cleared ahead of your next step. You're not being punished. You're being prepared. And you begin to see that this reorganization of your life is not about loss, but about resonance. There's no need for angry goodbyes, no need to chase explanations. What no longer vibrates with your essence simply dissolves, quietly, without resistance, as if the fire burning within you has begun to expose every false connection, every fear-based pattern, every attachment you once held out of habit or insecurity. You don't have to fight. You don't even have to decide. Life, now aligned with your deeper truth, decides for you. And yes, it can hurt. At first, there's confusion, even grief. But that pain gives way to relief. You stop pretending. You stop forcing yourself to fit into roles and spaces that no longer reflect your soul. You no longer have to hide just to belong. And in that release, peace finds you. Not the shallow peace of comfort zones, but the peace of authenticity. You start to stand taller, speak clearer, act truer. You no longer shrink to fit in. You no longer hand over your energy just to avoid discomfort. You no longer stay quiet just to keep the peace. Because this fire inside of you isn't trying to destroy, it's trying to reveal. And anything built on lies, illusions, or outdated versions of you will melt away, not with violence, but with grace. No pressure, no force, just natural, inevitable transformation. And here's the most beautiful part. As your old world fades, a new one begins to rise. You begin attracting people who don't just like you, they recognize you. People who don't drain your energy, they fuel it. People who don't require you to dim your light, they help you shine it brighter. So if this resonates with you, if you've felt this shift, if you're living this change, know that you're not alone. This is the path of awakening, of alignment, of true power. And if you're walking this path, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. If this message stirred something deep inside you, don't leave without taking a step further. Subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next message your soul is waiting to hear. This space isn't for everyone. It's for those who are ready to let go of the version they were taught to be and rise into the truth of who they really are. Because this is just the beginning.